Hello, it's Kim Murden here, and it's one of my Good Herb Wife podcasts. Today I'm just going to give a little introduction to you about my deceased husband, Dr. Kevin. Some of you will have known him, and others of you will know nothing about him at all. And he was a pioneer sort of man, a great thinker, and a very integrated, holistic, caring doctor, and he really would have liked to have been able to write a book, I'm sure, and probably in these days we would have encouraged him out into the worlds of YouTube, but instead you've just got me, and I wanted to kind of a little bit of flesh on his character's bones so that you understand a little bit more where I also come from in my herbal practice and my thinking, because a lot of these ideas that I will talk to throughout this series. Some of these I discuss quite well with my husband. And for example, he's left behind things like these huge boxes of index cards of different thoughts, and which he uses as a basis for talks and things. So I'm just going to pull some of those out because often people are saying to me, "I wish you'd share, some of his thinking," and so let's do that. He often used to say, "Dead doctors don't lie." Now, what was he thinking, and where's that coming from? It kind of gives you a bit of a wry smile because it's like one of those kind of jolting, waking up sentences. And I would suggest to you what he's offering up, or was offering up there, is that medicine, wondrous as modern medicine can be in its various guises of life-saving capacity, it is quite it's quite an institution, of course, and it's quite hierarchical. And there are often political motives. And dare we say it, that these days that the tail is wagging the dog a bit, rather than medics being able to practice as freely, maybe that's not quite the right word, but to be able to use their clinical discretion as widely as they would like, because there are various, some rightful caveats on their behaviours and other things that are controlling that. So to give you an idea of who he was, he first went into medicine and specialised in accident and emergency, and that was his speciality, and he really thrived on that, and used to say, when you really need medicine, that's when you need it. But he became aware that there were shortcomings in what modern medicine could offer for more chronic and long-term health conditions. He also got frustrated with the limitation within the NHS in terms of the funding issues and the managerial issues. So he took himself off to study traditional Chinese acupuncture, which was a 3 or 4 year course. He also went on to study human-centered psychotherapy. And after he left hospital medicine, he did a mixture of that, and he also did locum GP work. And then in the years that we had our children, he had his own practice doing psychotherapy and acupuncture mainly. And in that time, he had a desire to re-enter mainstream medicine, and that's how he ended up as a GP in New Zealand, in which he could have this really broad repertoire in his real lots of toolboxes, so that when people came to see him, he could navigate a way through their issues with that. And people still do and did at the time would say to me, Kevin is like the only doctor that when I go in and sit down with him, he'll say, "What can I do for you?" And I'm of service to you. And in that, he had a very open and collaborative approach with his patients, as well as being very diligent and ethical, going through what the issues were and then looking at what might serve them well. Sadly, I have to say that he did become rather disillusioned with his some aspects of his profession towards the end of his days, and I think that was tainted by yeah, this is the more distasteful political side. We won't need to go into that there today. So I thought I'd just pull out one of the cards I was looking at this morning in his box of, well, his words of wisdom box, and it's called some common myths in medicine. Myths as in widely held false stories, not the story myths. So yes, so widely held false beliefs. So I'll just read it out, and then maybe we could some pick the bones out of some of these. So he said for myth number one that the universe is based on matter. Myth number two, the existence of the soul is a dubious hypothesis. Myth number three, the NHS looks after our health in the UK. Myth number four, doctors know best. Myth number five, our health is the doctor's responsibility. And finally, the genetic makeup is the cause of most diseases. So let's just pick the bones, as I said, out a few of those in terms of his notion that the doctor knows best and our health is the doctor's responsibility, i.e. we put our health in their hands. Well, he was a great advocate for saying our health is in our own hands, in that, you know, it's our body, our understanding of it, and our needs um, really are the priority. Yes, you know, doctors are very highly trained and have a broad, you know, lots of experience, a broad knowledge base. But it's not to say that the doctoring should be bowed down to as if, you know, it's the new religion and the God of all things, because we need to understand there's things that we can do ourselves very much with the support and advice and wisdom of those who have whatever particular speciality that we're going to for getting advice. And within that, I think lies the real kind of conundrum of where we may be disempowered ourselves and given over, given up ourselves to maybe getting a little bit anxious about medicine if it's not in a mutual relationship. When we meet a practitioner, it really should be on this basis, you know, adult human meeting adult human, grown-ups, not this kind of disparity. And just as a quick observation, I would often smile at observing how, you know, being married to a doctor, how people would put presence of the doctor on a pedestal, of you know, even if they were being asked about something they didn't know much about. You know, it gave me a bit of a wry smile, and him too at times. So yeah, it's just to say that we really need to encourage ourselves to not give our power away. Doctors are valuable human beings, just like the rest of us. You know, they're there to be of service to us. And I often say to people, in fact, it was something that Kevin is very keen on, you know, when you are consulting anyone, you know, even someone like myself, that if you're uncertain or you're feeling unsettled, that you have three questions, you know, three very clear questions that you want to ask, so that you get, you know, you've got a parameters and a boundary of what information you're going to get back. So that's an important thing to consider. And if we just look at the etymological root of the word doctor, it means teacher, you know, someone who can give us the benefit of their skills and their wisdom, and to facilitate, you know, so that we are facilitated in what we need to take forward. And in around, I think it was around about 2010, Kevin was interested in how really, you know, so much of our health service is orientated now around managing diseases rather than looking at preventative medicine. And he asked of the medical council, you know, what is the definition of a doctor now? And what came back was a very narrow definition. It said that a doctor is someone who can sign, or write and sign a death certificate, and someone who can write a prescription. So from something that was this very broad, all-encompassing, facilitating um, role, we've reduced it down to a bureaucratic process. And he then went on to observe how a lot of GPs work, was if someone would come in, they'd have, say a condition that needed some blood tests and then some medicine. And then the protocol was, either on 3 or 6 months, you invite them back, you do some more tests, you adjust the prescription. So there's just quite a system involved. And nothing wrong in systems, but they can become more dominating than actually the needs of the human being. And I think what a lot of people lose sight of is that doctors tend to really be more bound by bureaucratic tick box cultures than they ever were. And I mean, I've got, another colleague who's left her work as a GP, retired early because she basically said, I'm fed up with making people sick and just being only allowed to these work within these very narrow parameters of health. I mean, obviously, I'm not being able to take enough care of people. So, and what people don't maybe always appreciate, if they don't understand these systems, that if a patient comes in to a GP's clinic, that the GP will then enter that in on the computer. Whether it's a pregnant woman or someone with diabetes, or someone who's coming for a various checkup. There's different funding boxes they will get, and they can usually put you down as one definition. Whereas we probably all know we're quite complex human beings, and our health needs and health concerns are often more than one symptom or more than one issue going on. And just Kevin really celebrated the fact of that's not celebrated, it's not quite the right word, but took great care. And one of his colleagues did say, Kevin was the kind of doctor, if you were ever ill, he's the kind of doctor, you would want to find yourself in front of, calm, considerate, and would listen. And the final thought I have, really, in our days of where things are getting more online. I mean, look, I'm doing this talk to you online. It has its place, but we do need to really value the importance and the resource and what comes from being connected with other human beings. And I think it was about last year, or it might have been the year before, I heard about I think it was a retired GP was doing some research into the differences between online consultations and the differences between if as a patient you saw a different doctor each time versus people who had an ongoing relationship with a family doctor. And it was no surprise to me that the health outcomes were far better for the patients and the practitioners who had an ongoing relationship. And that's something throughout my little podcast, probably, is going to be a recurring theme. The things about that we know as social animals, as beings, the things that resource and connect and attend to the healing and the well-being, even if, the health issues are quite dire. Sometimes we're working in medicine and we're going to get people better and they're going to be able to jump up and live another day in good health. At other times, there's going to be very chronic health problems, but you want to be able to enable people to be at their best. And of course, there'll be other times where they're entering their dying days and they can still be well met in those zones. So, yeah, I'm just going to leave that introductory thoughts of the kind of character he was, and look forward to talking to you more about various things and other wondrous ideas that he's got in his big box of ideas. So thanks for listening, and see you again.